Nation of Fit in 10, it is day 7. We are 10% through the challenge. Now, it doesn't seem like much, but you can see how fast 1 week goes by. We got another 9 of them. A lot can happen if you make it happen. So let's do that. And on that note, there are some things I want to remind you about that I'm seeing in journals or that I'm seeing just through your feedback. So number 1, I want to remind you to weigh all of your solid foods, everything. So this includes powders, right? Powders we would consider a solid food. Somebody asked me about protein powder. What? I can't just use the scoop. Sometimes the scoops are accurate, but even then you can have areas of air in your scoop, so you don't actually get a full scoop. Or in the case of, let's take something like ATP Lab, I use their protein powders. It's one of the protein powders I use. I do a packed scoop because that way I know I've got a full scoop and right to the rim. And that works out to be about 40 grams. But the advertised scoop on the side is 30 grams. So I'm getting a third more every scoop. But if I weigh it, then I know exactly what I get. So we want to be very, very careful with these things. You might think, well, that's just one thing and it's not that much off. So I have an extra 10 grams of protein. That's an extra 40 calories. And it's protein, has higher thermic effect. Doesn't really matter. But when you add up one after another, and it's in multiple different foods, quickly calories can be way off. So we want to be very, very careful with the amounts of macros and calories. You can kind of use those two words as synonymous. Macros are obviously more specific, but ultimately at the end of the day, we're just talking about extra energy. We got to be very, very careful with this. Okay, let's talk more about protein. I think yesterday I finished on, I don't know if I touched upon satiety, so excuse me. So I'm going to mention it again. Forgive me if I already did. Protein has the highest satiety out of any of the 3 macros. So you're going to feel the most full. Eat 500 calories worth of steak, or let's increase it. Eat 600, 700, 800 calories worth of steak, and eat 600, 700, 800 calories worth of donut. When you're going to eat, you're not probably going to feel anything. In fact, I remember when I was away, just a quick story here, when I was away a couple months ago, it was more than a couple months ago, it was maybe 6 months ago, I allowed myself to have, I had a free meal, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna get a bag of chips. I haven't had a bag of chips in I don't know how long. It was probably at least 10 years, maybe more than that. And believe me, I do allow myself some junk, but I just don't eat chips very often. So I had chips, and I bought like a big bag of Kettle salt and vinegar chips. I ate the whole thing, and I'm like, when it was done, I was like, that's it? It's done? And when I looked at the amount of calories I had over 1,200 calories. It felt like I ate nothing. So you gotta be very, very careful. So we want to have protein every meal to allow us to feel full. So again, I'm completing this from yesterday. So number 5, protein is going to help, especially solid protein sources, real whole food sources. These types of proteins, protein in general, of course, is going to help to regulate blood sugar levels. So what this means is it slows down the rate at which sugar enters your bloodstream. And this is a good thing, because the more sugar that ends up in your bloodstream at one point in time, the quicker the body needs to bring that sugar level down, because it's toxic. If you have too much sugar, it's toxic to the human body. If it's too low, it's toxic as well. So we've always got to keep that blood sugar level at a certain within a certain set of limits. So if you've got a lot of blood sugar in your bloodstream, it's got to go somewhere. Okay, so it's either going to go to your muscles or your liver. Perhaps you'll excrete it, but that's generally if you're more diabetic. A lot of it's going to go to fat storage. Okay, so but again, if we can trickle in the sugar slower, less chance of it being stored as fat. Number 6, Dopamine production. Protein plays a very strong role in dopamine production. Dopamine is responsible for essentially keeping you alert. You're going to feel very, very alert. If your dopamine levels are high, you're generally going to be in a good mood, and you're going to feel very, very alert. So a lot of times when people follow a higher protein diet or a lower carb diet, lower carb, generally that means higher fat, higher protein, they tend to say, I have more energy, I have more energy, I have more energy. But this is really about dopamine. So if you want to feel alert, if you want to feel a little bit more on the ball, if you want to be awake, eat protein regularly throughout the day. Number 7, feelings of energy. Now this kind of goes along with dopamine. This also goes along with regulating blood sugar. So again, if we're not getting those peaks and valleys of sugar, and we're keeping a high level or a sustainable level or a decent level of dopamine production in the brain, we're going to feel like we have more energy. We're going to feel more alert, quicker on our feet, less lethargic, and overall much better. Okay, let's get to the message of the day. Today's message of the day on this day 7 is, this is a process. This is a process. And part of the process is learning how this all goes. One of the reasons I give you your scan, or we do the second scan 4 weeks into the challenge, is because I know the first couple weeks are a bit challenging, for lack of better words. You're learning the system. You're making a lot of mistakes. And so your subsequent 6 weeks after this are going to be much, much better. Your first 4 weeks aren't going to be brutal, but maybe the first 2 won't be so good. Okay, this whole thing is a process. It's all about digging away a little bit every day. It's not about seeing a massive change in a couple days. No, that's not what this is about. Okay, this is more about sustainable measures. With sustainable measures comes more sustainable changes or sustainable losses, which essentially means slower but ongoing change. Fast change will be temporary change. Okay, so whenever you think about this, whether it's your weight or whether it's your next scan and the results, I want you to think about this thing as an overall process. There's a lot going on, but everything you're doing right now, even if you're not doing it perfectly, is leading towards progression. And that doesn't mean that you can't progress more, of course, right? Every day, we're gonna try to progress even more. We're gonna get better at our journaling. We're gonna get better at training in the gym, right? We're gonna become more in tune with the training. We're going to increase the intensity of the cardio so you can get better with your cardio, all these things and much, much more. Okay, positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, for the love of God, give some gratitude, and I will talk to you guys all soon. See you guys.